In the 16th century, a young girl named Theresa walked out of the rugged Spanish town of Avila, holding her smaller brother's hand. Her goal was simple. She was going to seek martyrdom in the country of the Moors. Her family eventually caught up with her and turned her back. But that child pilgrimage raises a question for the rest of us. What happens to a person born with that same world-changing fire today, in a society where the old crusades have been replaced by the quiet expectations of the middle class? George Eliot's novel Middlemarch introduces us to Dorothea Brooke. She is intelligent, deeply religious, and so dismissive of vanity that her plain dress makes her look like a Bible quotation in a modern newspaper. When an amiable local baronet tries to court her, she views the prospect of a standard, comfortable marriage as a ridiculous irrelevance. Dorothea is enamored of greatness. She wants to justify her life with the highest possible knowledge. But because she is a young woman confined to a provincial English estate, that hunger for an epic purpose makes her incredibly vulnerable. She is looking for a master, and she has no idea how to spot a fraud. This vulnerability leads to a disastrous error. Dorothea meets Reverend Edward Casaubon, a scholar who has spent decades working on a project he calls the key to all mythologies. Dorothea doesn't see a dry, pedantic man. She sees a genius whose work will provide the moral framework she's been searching for. She elevates him into something divine, a guide who will deliver her from her girlish ignorance and allow her to participate in the grandest path of human thought. While Dorothea seeks spiritual elevation, a young doctor named Tertius Lydgate arrives in Middlemarch with a different kind of ambition. In hospital wards like this one, Lydgate sees an opportunity to revolutionize medicine and strip away the empty bigwigism of the established profession. But Lydgate has his own flaws, what the narrator calls spots of commonness. For all his scientific ardor, he is secretly attached to the very things that define the society he disdains, like expensive furniture, high social distinction, and effortless comforts of the wealthy. Both Dorothea and Lydgate are trapped by their own idealism. They are so focused on their internal visions of greatness that they fail to see the practical traps being laid by the world around them. Dorothea marries Casaubon and goes to Rome for her honeymoon. But instead of an intellectual awakening, the romantic illusion of her marriage instantly shatters. She realizes that Casaubon's great work is a hollow shell. Underneath these beautiful Vatican frescoes, she discovers that her husband isn't a genius. He's a disorganized pedant, lost in a labyrinth of footnotes, paralyzed by the fear that he has nothing original to say. Casaubon didn't want an intellectual companion. He wanted a submissive admirer to nurse his ego and copy his notes. Dorothea finds herself in a state of moral imprisonment, confined to a silent library with a man who resents her desire to help. Back in Middlemarch, Lydgate's life is narrowing just as quickly. He marries the status-conscious Rosamond Vincy, and his spots of commonness become a noose. His need for a genteel lifestyle creates a cycle of debt that slowly chokes his medical career. Middlemarch is not a place of grand tragedies, but of small, relentless frictions. It is a web that neutralizes ambition by making greatness too expensive and too socially inconvenient to maintain. As Casaubon's health fails, his insecurity turns into a quiet, poisonous jealousy. He becomes obsessed with the connection between Dorothea and his young relative, Will Ladislaw, a man who actually understands the things Dorothea cares about. When Casaubon dies, he leaves behind a final, vindictive insult. He adds a codicil to his will that legally revokes Dorothea's entire inheritance if she ever chooses to marry Will Ladislaw. He has reached out from the grave to control her. To be with the man she loves, Dorothea must become a social outcast and lose the wealth that funds her charitable schemes. At the same time, Lydgate's reputation is being dismantled. Pushed to the brink of financial ruin, he accepts a loan from the hypocritical banker Bulstrode. When Bulstrode is exposed as a fraud, Lydgate is branded as his accomplice, destroying his standing in the community. This is the moment where their initial fires are put to the proof. The question is no longer how they will change the world, but how much they are willing to lose to keep their own integrity. Dorothea's family, led by her sister Celia, expects her to act with common sense, to stay in her library, keep her money, and ignore the scandalous Will Ladislaw. But Dorothea has finally found the clarity her marriage lacked. She decides to willingly abandon the wealth and the restrictive estate Casaubon left behind. She steps down from her moral pedestal to offer help to Lydgate when everyone else is turning away. And ultimately, she chooses to marry Will, trading a safe, gilded life for an uncertain, authentic one. She didn't find her epic crusade. Instead, she chose a messy, financially reduced life that was actually hers, rather than a performance for a society she never respected. Did Dorothea Brooke ever achieve the historic greatness of a Saint Theresa? George Eliot provides a final, poignant authorial judgment on that question. She writes that Dorothea's life was the result of noble impulses, struggling within an imperfect social state. Her deeds didn't change the course of history, and her name won't be found in the grand epics. But Eliot reminds us that the world is not made better solely by famous heroes. It is sustained by those who live faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs, people like Dorothea, whose unhistoric acts of goodness prevent the world from becoming a much darker place.